The lobby of the hotel was shining like a palace. The floor was made of marble, polished so well that the lights reflected like stars on water. The chandeliers above glowed warmly, and the sound of laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. Guests walked around in expensive clothes. Men in suits, women in silk dresses, and waiters carrying trays of drinks. It was the picture of luxury. At the entrance, the golden doors opened slowly. A man walked inside. His clothes were plain, his shoes a little dusty, and his bag looked old. Compared to the shining guests, he looked very simple, almost poor. His face was calm, but his eyes had a quiet strength. The receptionist, a young woman with sharp eyes and a proud smile, noticed him immediately. She leaned closer to her colleague and whispered, loud enough for others to hear. "Look at that man. He doesn't look like he belongs here." The colleague giggled softly, trying not to laugh. The receptionist shook her head and said, "This is not a cheap hotel. Maybe he is lost." The man continued to walk forward, slowly but confidently. His steps were firm, and he seemed unaffected by the stares of the people around him. Some guests looked at him with surprise. Others looked at him with pity. But the man simply kept walking, his face showing no anger, no shame, only peace. The receptionist folded her arms and waited as the man reached her desk. "Good evening," the man said politely, his voice calm and gentle. The receptionist raised her eyebrows. She looked him up and down and forced a smile. "Good evening, sir. How can I help you?" Her tone was sharp, almost mocking. "I would like to book a room," the man replied. The receptionist blinked and then laughed softly. "Sir, do you know where you are? This is a 5-star hotel. Our rooms are very expensive. Maybe you should check the hotels across the street. They are more affordable." The man didn't get angry. He just smiled faintly. "Thank you for your concern. But I would like a room here." The receptionist stared at him, confused by his calmness. She leaned forward and said quietly, "Sir, one night here can cost more than your entire bag." She pointed at his old suitcase with a smirk. The man looked at his bag and then at her. His expression did not change. "Don't worry. I can manage." Guests nearby were beginning to notice the conversation. A couple standing close whispered to each other, "Why is he here? Maybe he doesn't know the prices." Another guest chuckled, "This will be interesting." The receptionist sighed loudly, as if she was tired of wasting her time. "Sir, please understand. This hotel is not for everyone. It is for people who can afford it." Her voice carried a note of arrogance. Still, the man did not argue. He placed his old bag on the floor and gently rested his hands on the desk. His eyes were steady, calm, and unshaken by her words. The receptionist was becoming irritated. She wanted to embarrass him more, to show everyone that he didn't belong here. She leaned back in her chair, playing with her pen, and asked, "Do you even know how much one room costs here?" The man smiled again. "I do not need to know. I only need a room." His words were simple, but they carried weight. The receptionist frowned. Something about the way he spoke made her uncomfortable, but she quickly pushed the thought away. Behind the man, the golden doors opened again and more rich guests entered, laughing and talking loudly. They passed him without a glance, as if he were invisible. The receptionist's pride grew even stronger. She wanted to prove in front of them that this man didn't belong. She typed something on her computer and said loudly, "We only have premium suites available tonight. They are extremely costly. Are you sure you want to stay here?" Her voice was dripping with sarcasm, as if she expected him to run away. The man nodded slowly. "Yes. I am sure." The guests around the lobby were watching closely now. Some were smiling, waiting for the moment when the man would give up. The receptionist smirked, enjoying the attention. But inside the man's calm smile, there was a secret. Something no one could see. His eyes carried a spark, a quiet confidence that did not match his poor appearance. He was not here by mistake. He was not lost. He had come here for a reason. And soon, everyone would know. The receptionist looked at him one last time and thought, "This poor man is wasting my time." But she had no idea that the man she was insulting owned everything she stood on. The receptionist sat straight in her chair, her eyes still scanning the man from head to toe. She could not believe that he was serious about booking a room. In her mind, he was wasting her time. Around the lobby, some guests were watching silently, waiting to see what would happen next. The man, however, remained calm. His face was soft, his voice polite, and his posture steady. He showed no sign of anger, no sign of embarrassment. Instead, he gave a small nod and repeated, "I would like a room, please." The receptionist tilted her head. Her smile was fake, but her words were sharp. "Sir, I think you don't understand. This hotel is not for everyone. One night here could cost more than a small apartment in the city. People come here for luxury, for comfort, for status." The man listened carefully. Then he gave a simple answer. "That is fine. I will take a room." The receptionist almost laughed. She leaned back and crossed her arms. Her voice grew louder so the people around could hear. "Sir, may I ask you a question? Do you have enough money to stay here? Because honestly, you don't look like someone who can." Some guests chuckled quietly. Others shook their heads, whispering to each other. A young man in a suit said to his friend, "This is embarrassing. He should just leave." The man looked at the receptionist with steady eyes. He did not reply to her insult. Instead, he softly asked, "Do you have a room available tonight or not?" The receptionist rolled her eyes. "Yes, of course, but," she paused for effect and then said slowly, "only our premium suites are open. The price is very high. Maybe you should think again." She expected him to step back. She expected him to say, "Oh, sorry, I can't afford it." That would make her feel powerful. That would prove her point in front of everyone watching. But the man only nodded once. "That will be fine." The receptionist froze for a moment. She did not expect this answer. She quickly typed on her computer, checking the details. Inside, her mind was racing. Is he serious? Or is he pretending? To test him, she said loudly, "Sir, the price for one night in this suite is more than most people's monthly salary. Are you still sure you want it?" The man smiled gently, a smile that reached his eyes. "Yes. I told you, I can manage." The receptionist felt a wave of irritation. Who was this man? Why wasn't he leaving? Why wasn't he embarrassed? She decided to push harder. "Sir," she said firmly, "do you even understand the services here? This is a luxury hotel. We don't serve simple meals. We serve dishes prepared by world-class chefs. We don't provide small beds. We provide king-size luxury. Everything here is expensive." The man tilted his head slightly. His eyes remained calm, his voice soft. "I did not come for the food. I did not come for the bed. I came for the experience. Please book the room." Her face turned red with frustration. She could feel the eyes of the guests in the lobby burning into her. They were enjoying this little drama. Some of them were even smiling, waiting to see how far she would go. One elderly guest whispered to his wife, "Strange man. He doesn't look rich, but he doesn't sound weak either." The wife replied, "Yes, he speaks like someone who knows more than he shows." The receptionist leaned closer to the man. Her voice dropped, filled with sarcasm. "Sir, you know, sometimes people pretend to be rich. They walk into places like this, hoping to feel important. But the truth always comes out. It would be very embarrassing if you booked a room and then couldn't pay." The man didn't flinch. He simply looked into her eyes and said quietly, "Don't worry about me. Just do your duty." Those words hit her like a slap. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. His tone wasn't angry, but it carried weight, as if it came from someone used to giving orders, not taking them. She quickly looked away and tapped her keyboard nervously. Her arrogance slipped for just a second. But then she regained her pride, putting on her usual fake smile. "Very well," she said slowly. "I will book the suite. But remember, once you check in, you must pay in advance. There are no second chances here." The man nodded calmly. "That is not a problem." The receptionist printed out the form and pushed it toward him. Her eyes narrowed as she watched his hand pick up the pen. His fingers were steady, his handwriting smooth. There was nothing nervous about him. In that moment, the receptionist felt a strange chill. Something about this man was different. Something she couldn't explain. But she shook off the thought quickly. To her, he was still just a poor man pretending to be rich. She was sure he would embarrass himself soon. She smirked again, speaking loudly so everyone could hear. Let us see how long this poor guest can survive in a place like this. The man looked up, his calm eyes meeting hers. He gave a small smile. Not angry, not insulted. Just a quiet smile. And in that smile, there was a secret. A secret the receptionist could not see. A secret that would soon turn her world upside down. The receptionist's fake smile remained on her face, but inside, she was burning with irritation. She had tried everything to discourage the man. She had warned him about the price, reminded him about the luxury, and even hinted that he could not afford it. Yet, he stood there, calm and confident, refusing to back down. For her, this was unacceptable. She had worked at this hotel for years, and she believed she could recognize real wealth from a distance. To her, this man was no more than a poor traveler in old clothes, pretending to be something he was not. She tapped her pen on the desk and said in a loud voice, "Very well, sir. Since you are so confident, let me suggest the suite that matches your style." She paused for effect, then continued with a smirk. "We do have one small service room near the back. It is not luxurious, not beautiful, and certainly not for important guests. But perhaps it will be comfortable for someone like you." The lobby grew quiet for a moment. Some guests gasped softly at her words. Others laughed under their breath. They were shocked by her open rudeness, but at the same time, they enjoyed the drama. The man did not look offended. He only smiled faintly and replied, "That won't be necessary. I will take the best you have." Her smirk faded for a second. His calmness was unusual. But she quickly recovered, shaking her head in disbelief. "The best? Oh, sir, the best is for kings and business leaders. Not for travelers like you." The man's eyes were steady, his voice quiet. "Everyone deserves respect. Whether rich or poor. Please, do your job." Those words made the receptionist stiffen. She felt as if the man had looked right into her soul. But instead of admitting her mistake, her pride grew stronger. She refused to let him have the last word. "Respect," she said sarcastically. "Respect is earned, sir. And let me be honest with you, you don't look like someone who deserves it." The words were cruel. They echoed through the lobby. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even the waiters stopped moving for a moment, surprised by her boldness. Still, the man did not react. His face remained calm, his body still. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply gave her a look that carried quiet strength. This silence made her more nervous than if he had shouted. His calmness felt like power, and she could not understand why. To cover her unease, she laughed loudly. "Look at this. A poor man in an old coat asking for the most expensive suite. This is comedy." The couple sitting nearby shook their heads. The woman whispered, "This is not right. She's humiliating him for no reason." Her husband replied softly, "Yes, but look at him. He doesn't seem weak. It feels like he knows something we don't." The receptionist continued, enjoying the attention. She leaned closer and said sharply, "Do you know who stays here, sir? Powerful men. Rich women. Celebrities. Not people like you. You don't belong in their world." For a moment, the man's eyes darkened, but only for a second. Then he spoke gently, "Everyone belongs in this world. Money does not decide a person's value." The receptionist rolled her eyes and waved her hand dismissively. "Spare me the speeches, sir. You can't change reality. Some people are born rich, and others, well, others just try to sneak into places where they don't belong." Her words were sharp like knives, but the man stood tall. His silence was louder than her insults. The more she mocked him, the calmer he became. It was as if he was waiting for the right moment. Around the lobby, whispers began to grow. Some guests felt pity for the man. Others were entertained by the scene. But almost everyone was curious. Who was he really? Why didn't he just walk away? The receptionist, drunk on her own arrogance, gave a final insult. She leaned back in her chair and said loudly so the entire lobby could hear, "Sir, I don't know why you are here, but let me tell you one truth. You will never be more than what you look like, a poor man trying to touch a world he cannot afford." The words hung in the air. They were cruel, heavy, and humiliating. The man picked up his bag slowly. He looked around the lobby, at the shining chandeliers, the polished floor, the people staring at him. Then, he turned back to the receptionist and said softly, "Sometimes, appearances are the biggest lie. One day, you will understand." His calm tone made the receptionist shiver for a brief second. But she quickly shook it off and forced a laugh, pretending to be in control. What she did not know was that her world was about to change. The man she had insulted again and again was not the man she thought he was. And soon, her insults would come back to haunt her. The receptionist's laughter echoed across the lobby. She believed she had won. In her mind, she had put the stranger in his place. She had mocked him, belittled him, and shown everyone that he did not belong. But the man stood silently, calm as ever. His quiet presence seemed out of place in a room filled with arrogance and noise. Guests kept whispering to each other, unsure what to make of him. Just then, the golden doors of the hotel opened again. The manager rushed inside, holding a phone in his hand. His face was pale, his eyes wide with panic. He looked as if he had just received shocking news. The receptionist noticed him and called out with pride, "Sir, come here. You must see this. This poor man is trying to book the most expensive suite. Isn't that ridiculous?" The manager did not respond. His eyes moved across the lobby until they fell on the simple man standing at the desk. For a brief second, his body froze. The phone slipped from his hand and landed on the floor with a thud. The entire lobby went silent. Everyone stared at the manager, confused by his reaction. Slowly, the manager walked forward. His steps were heavy, his face pale. He stopped in front of the man, bowed slightly, and whispered, "Sir, you are here." The receptionist blinked in shock. She looked from the manager to the guest, then back again. Did he just call him, "Sir"? The man gave a calm nod, his eyes never leaving the manager's. "I wanted to see things for myself." The receptionist's smile faded instantly. She felt her throat go dry. The word "sir" echoed in her mind. What was happening? Why was her manager treating this man with such respect? The manager wiped sweat from his forehead. "Sir, we didn't know you would arrive tonight. If we had known, we would have prepared everything. The suite should have been ready, the staff should have been waiting." The man raised his hand, stopping him. His voice was quiet but firm. "There was no need. I did not come to be welcomed. I came to see how ordinary guests are treated." The lobby buzzed with whispers. The guests who had laughed earlier now stared with wide eyes. Waiters exchanged nervous glances. Everyone could sense that something was not normal. The receptionist felt her legs weaken. Her arrogance disappeared. She tried to speak, but no words came out. For the first time that evening, her face turned red with fear. The manager turned toward her, his eyes sharp with anger. "Do you know who you have been speaking to?" he hissed. She stammered, He's just a guest. Isn't he?" The manager's voice rose, trembling with respect and fear. "This man is not just a guest. He is the owner of this hotel." Gasps filled the air. The chandeliers seemed to tremble with the sound of shock. Guests covered their mouths, unable to believe what they had heard. The waiters dropped their trays. The receptionist felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. She stared at the man, her eyes wide. The owner. This poor-looking man owns the entire hotel? Her mind raced back to every insult she had thrown at him. Every cruel word, every mocking smile, every humiliation. She had treated him like dirt, not knowing she was spitting on the very ground he owned. The man's calm eyes met hers. He said nothing, but his silence was heavier than thunder. The manager bowed deeply. "Sir, please forgive us. We will correct this immediately. Your suite will be prepared at once." The man shook his head slowly. No. I do not want a special welcome. I only wanted to see how your staff treats people. And now, I have seen enough. His words cut through the air like a blade. The receptionist felt tears sting her eyes. Her arrogance had turned into shame. She wanted to disappear, to hide from the weight of her mistake. The guests who had mocked him earlier now looked guilty. Some lowered their heads, ashamed of their laughter. Others stared at him with respect, realizing they had judged him too quickly. The receptionist opened her mouth, trying to apologize, but no words came out. Her pride had built a cage around her, and now she was trapped inside it. The man looked around the lobby, at the shining lights, the expensive decorations, the faces filled with shock. Then he spoke softly, but every word carried power. Respect is not about money. It is not about clothes. It is about humanity. Tonight, I have seen how quick people are to judge. Perhaps it is time for this hotel to change. The manager bowed again, nodding quickly. Yes, sir. It will change. I promise. The receptionist's hands trembled. Her voice finally broke. Sir. I didn't know. Please, forgive me. The man did not respond. His eyes looked past her, as if she was invisible. His silence was worse than any punishment. The lobby remained frozen in shock. Everyone now understood, the poor-looking guest was not poor at all. He was the master of everything around them. And the receptionist, who had insulted him again and again, had just destroyed her own pride in front of the world. The lobby was silent. For the first time since the man had walked in, not a single laugh, not a single whisper could be heard. Everyone stood frozen, their eyes fixed on him. The receptionist's face had lost all color. Her hands shook as she gripped the counter, trying not to collapse. She could not believe what she had just heard. The owner. This man. How could it be possible? The manager's voice broke the silence. His tone was full of respect and fear. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, please meet the man who owns this hotel. Everything you see, the chandeliers, the lobby, the rooms, the staff, belongs to him. Gasps spread through the crowd. Guests who had laughed earlier now hid their faces in shame. Waiters looked down, afraid to meet his eyes. The receptionist stood like a statue, her mind replaying every insult she had thrown at him. The man looked around the grand lobby. His eyes moved slowly from one corner to another, taking in the gold, the marble, the shining glass. Finally, his gaze returned to the receptionist. She wanted to disappear. She wanted the ground to open and swallow her whole. She whispered, almost too softly to hear, I didn't know, sir. Please forgive me. But the man said nothing. He simply studied her face, calm but piercing, as if he could see every thought inside her mind. The manager rushed forward, nervous sweat on his forehead. Sir, please allow us to prepare your suite immediately. We will call the staff, arrange a proper welcome. The man lifted his hand gently, silencing him. His voice was calm, steady, and powerful. No. I came here tonight not as the owner. I came as a simple guest. I wanted to see how people are treated when no one knows who they are. The room grew even quieter. Every person felt the weight of his words. The man continued, his eyes never leaving the receptionist. And now I know the truth. A guest who looks poor is treated with humiliation. A guest who looks rich is treated with respect. Is this what hospitality means to you? The manager bowed deeply, ashamed. Sir, it is my failure. I promise this will never happen again. The man's voice grew sharper, though still calm. It is not only your failure. It is the failure of everyone who judged me tonight. You all saw a poor man and decided he was not worthy of respect. Guests lowered their heads, guilt burning in their hearts. A man in a suit whispered, we misjudged him, all of us did. The receptionist felt tears forming in her eyes. She wanted to beg, to fall to her knees, but her pride held her still. Yet inside, her heart screamed with regret. The owner took a step closer to her. His calm eyes met her trembling ones. You insulted me again and again. Not once did you think of kindness. Not once did you show patience. Tell me, why? Her lips trembled. Because I thought you were poor. I thought, you didn't belong here. His eyes darkened, and his voice carried sadness more than anger. And that is the problem. You judged me by my clothes, not by my character. You looked at my bag, not at my heart. Respect is free, yet you refused to give even that. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She whispered, I am sorry, truly sorry. Please, give me another chance. The man turned his gaze away, looking at the guests who stood silently around him. This is not about me alone. This is about every person who has been judged unfairly. How many others have faced the same humiliation here? The words hit the guests like thunder. They remembered times they had looked down on others, times they had mocked people without knowing their story. The lobby became a mirror, reflecting everyone's hidden guilt. The manager stepped forward again, his voice trembling. Sir, what do you wish to do? The man stood tall, his calmness more powerful than anger. What I wish, he said, is change. This hotel will no longer be a place where only the rich are respected. From this day, every guest, rich or poor, will be treated with equal dignity. Do you understand? The manager bowed quickly. Yes, sir. I promise. The receptionist wiped her tears, her voice breaking. Sir, please, don't fire me. Give me one chance to correct my mistake. The man looked at her for a long moment. His silence felt endless. Finally, he said softly, you do not deserve kindness, but I will give it anyway. Not for you, but for the lesson. Learn from this. Change yourself, or you will lose everything. Her knees weakened. She nodded quickly, tears flowing down her face. Yes, sir. I will change. I promise. The man stepped back, his calm eyes sweeping the room once more. The guests bowed their heads in shame. No one dared to speak. He picked up his old bag, the same bag that had invited so much ridicule, and placed it gently on the counter. Then, with a quiet but firm voice, he said, Prepare my room. I will stay here tonight, not as the owner, but as a guest. And tomorrow, we will begin the change this hotel needs. The words echoed through the lobby. They were not just instructions, they were a declaration. A declaration that respect was not for sale, and dignity belonged to everyone. And in that moment, the receptionist, the manager, the guests, and every person present learned a lesson they would never forget. The receptionist's cheeks were wet with tears. Her heart pounded as she replayed her own cruel words in her mind. Each insult felt heavier now, cutting deeper than before. She had mocked the very man who could decide her future with a single sentence. The manager stood quietly, his head bowed low. Guests shuffled nervously, their eyes fixed on the owner, waiting for his final decision. The grand lobby, once filled with laughter and chatter, now felt like a courtroom. The man, the owner, placed his old bag gently on the counter. He looked around slowly, his calm gaze resting on every face. His silence was heavy, yet it spoke louder than anger. Finally, he began to speak. His voice was calm, steady, and full of meaning. Respect, he said, is not something you give only to the rich. Respect is not about clothes, money, or power. True respect is about humanity. Tonight, I have seen how easily people forget this simple truth. The guests lowered their heads. Shame washed over them. Some remembered how they had giggled when the receptionist mocked him. Others recalled their own whispers of judgment. Now, every one of them wished they had acted differently. The receptionist trembled, whispering, Sir, I am so sorry. I did not mean. But the owner lifted his hand, silencing her. His eyes pierced through her like glass. No. You meant every word. You thought I was poor, and you decided that made me less than you. That is the truth. Her knees weakened. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, but deep down she knew he was right. The owner turned to the manager. From today, this hotel will change. I want new rules. Every guest, whether rich or poor, will be treated with equal dignity. No more arrogance. No more judgment. Do you understand? The manager bowed deeply, his voice trembling. Yes, sir. I promise. Things will change. The owner looked back at the receptionist. She felt her chest tighten, her hands shaking. Would he fire her? Would he throw her out in front of everyone? But instead, his voice softened. "And you," he said, "will also change. I will not fire you, not because you deserve mercy, but because you need a chance to learn. Use this chance wisely. If you repeat your mistake, you will have no place here." Her tears fell harder. She nodded quickly. "Thank you, sir. I promise. I will never forget this." The guests watched in silence. Many of them felt a strange warmth in their hearts. They had come expecting luxury and entertainment, but tonight they had witnessed something more valuable, a lesson about life itself. The owner picked up his old bag once more. He smiled faintly, a smile that carried wisdom and strength. "I walked in tonight looking like a poor traveler. And many of you laughed. But remember this, life is full of surprises. The person you judge today may be the person who owns everything tomorrow." His words rang through the lobby like a bell. The guests nodded quietly, some even wiping away tears. The receptionist, still trembling, whispered to herself, "Never again. I will never judge someone like this again." The manager ordered the staff to prepare the suite, but this time, no one looked at the man with pity or arrogance. They looked at him with respect, true respect, the kind that comes from the heart. As he walked toward the elevator, every eye followed him. The sound of his simple shoes on the marble floor echoed like a reminder. Appearances mean nothing, but dignity means everything. At the door of the elevator, he paused and turned back one last time. His calm voice filled the room. "Remember, a hotel is not built on gold and marble. It is built on kindness. Without kindness, even the richest place becomes empty. Never forget that." The elevator doors closed slowly, leaving behind silence. But it was not the silence of shame anymore. It was the silence of reflection. The guests began to whisper again, but now their voices were soft, thoughtful. "What a man," someone said. "He taught us more in one night than money ever could." The receptionist sank into her chair, her hands covering her face. She had been humiliated, yes, but she had also been given a gift. A chance to change. A chance to grow. And in her heart, she knew she would never look at a guest the same way again. The lobby lights glowed warmly, but tonight, they seemed different. It was as if the entire hotel had transformed, not its walls, not its chandeliers, but its spirit. The lesson was clear. Respect all. Judge none. Because behind simple clothes may hide a powerful story. And behind a poor man's bag may lie the keys to an empire.